I feel a book is made out of 1,000 little ideas, isn't it?
Hmm.
And I feel if one of them slips my mind, I may have to side with Stephen King here. Maybe it wasn't that important. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I think the
yeah.
ones that keep coming back, and I'm like, oh, I should really, include this in the book, are definitely worth putting down. A book is 1,000 small flashes of inspiration, right? And I don't think we can always catch them all, and that's okay.
Hello, and welcome to So I Wrote a Book. Now what? Where writers chat about writing. My guest today is Anne Alcott. She's the children's book author behind When Things Get Too Loud, Beau versus the Party Monsters, Trouble in the Pickle Jar, and her newest book just came out. This book is Overwhelmed. Along with her children's book author hat, she also writes adult novels, and in this episode we talk about it all. We also get into self-publishing versus traditional publishing and just all the things. I'm so excited for you to listen. Let's get into it.
Hi, Anne. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
So, what made you decide to write a book?
I don't think that was a decision I took into my own hands. I think books just decided to be part of my life. I had no choice.
You write books against your will.
Like literally. Oh, there you go. I wouldn't. I don't know what else I would do. No. It was always something I dabbled in. I know it's a bit of a cliche. I was 6 when I started writing stories, but that was the thing. And during summer vacations, I started writing stories and poems. And I don't know, it's always something that felt natural to me. And I think why I started a little bit later in between was the language shift because I'm German and I didn't really speak a word of English until I was 21. So I learned when I met my husband. And then we had kids, and my eldest is autistic and he has sensory issues. And so the first time I sat down to actively say, okay, I'm going to write a book was for my child because I wanted to stop having to explain what's going on with him. And I wanted him to have a story that empowers him and says, okay, it's totally cool the way I am and the way I feel. So I think my children gave me the last push.
That's amazing that your first like book as an adult was for your child. I think that's so great. And what was that book called?
I have it here because I'm in my office surrounded by my
Yeah.
beautiful books. The first one's called When Things Get Too Loud. It's still my bestseller, which is very nice. I just published my 4th book yesterday. And it's about a little boy called Beau, and he experiences sensory overwhelm. He's very sensitive to noises and textures and to visual overstimulation. And I created something very simple in this book series called the Philometer. And
Mm.
we're going with Beau through the stages of into the red, and then we're trying to figure out how to get back into the green to feel less overwhelmed. So, yeah, I just wanted to give my kid a simple tool to communicate his emotions when he says, I'm right now feeling like an 8. Then we're like, okay, what can we do? And there's some examples at the back of the book of what could help you or your child to get back into the green zone.
That's so awesome. So, writing a children's book, it must be because you also write adult novels.
Yes.
Did you, when did you decide to try that? It seems like such a very different process, or is it that different of a process? Because I've never written a children's book.
For me, it's like 2 completely different jobs. And funny enough, this one I do all by myself. The children's books, I do the illustrations. I do the writing, the editing, the formatting, the publishing, the marketing, all of it by myself. So that's my whole little company. And typically children's books start out with an idea of a niche or something I like to fill. And then with a rhyme. This is actually the book I just published yesterday. This book is Overwhelmed. It's the first one I haven't written in rhyme. So, but typically for me, it starts with a sort of rhythm. And then I'm thinking about what kind of message I could send and how to keep the children engaged. Whereas writing a novel is all happens only on the inside. So I feel like my children's books are very hands-on. I do a lot of different tasks. And so when I get stuck with my novel writing, I procrastinate and continue with my children's books until I hit a certain deadline, or, I wanted to finish formatting or illustrations. And then I'm like, okay, I've done 2 days of this now. Now I go back to novels because I have ADHD as well. I like novelty. So I have to keep things interesting. And that really helps actually to switch it up so drastically. I think if I would be writing, let's say, middle grade fantasy and adult romance, that would almost be too similar. You know what I mean?
I do.
This is a completely different topics. It's kind of like switching one part of my brain on and off. And then,
Yeah. Huh. That's so cool. When I need a break from novel writing, I usually write poetry, which nobody will ever see.
No, why not?
Because telling myself that nobody will ever see it gives me the freedom to just write whatever I want and keep doing it, I guess.
That's how exactly my last book happened.
Oh, yeah.
Funny enough, it started out as a collection of essays. I never written an essay in my life.
Why not write a collection?
And I'm like, I don't know. I just write something. I didn't even want to give it a name. I said it's not a story. It's not a genre. I'm just writing what comes to my head. And then I was so hesitant to show it to anyone else or to talk about it because I didn't want the magic to disappear. I was like, okay, something is happening. And I think it happened because no one else was watching or no one else was expecting it. My agent wasn't waiting behind me and saying, okay, what do you have on the table next? And so I said, I will never show this to anyone. And now I'm just about to send it to beta readers. So,
That's so exciting.
Stuff happens. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So with the children's books, then what made you decide to pursue self-publishing?
I think that I have a hard time with giving up control. I like to stay in charge of things, and I truly enjoy almost. Let's not talk about formatting. Almost part of the process of creating a children's book. I have complete freedom when I'm doing this. So maybe, if I'd had a publisher, they didn't like the cover, they didn't like the color, or this time I ventured into mixed media and I crafted a little book guide. I don't have to think about what other people think about the message other than my readers. And it gives me the freedom to cater to a very small amount of people that I know need books like this. I think often when you're a traditional publisher, you want to have books that are easily marketable for a wide audience. And that's not the books I write. I write books for children with extra needs. And funny enough, those circles have found me. And
that's great.
I have a bunch of occupational therapists and speech therapists reaching out to me. And so it's like circulating, and it's in the group where it's needed. So I think I don't know if I would be able to be doing that if I were traditionally publishing the children's books.
And so for your novels, are you also going to self-publish those, or are you going to pursue traditional publishing for those?
So I just left my agent. So I am planning to go the traditional publishing route. I've been on submission with my last book for a little over a year, and it didn't quite work out with my agent, so I left, and now I'm finishing my current novel, and then I'm trying to requery with that one. I do have a couple of interested agents had already knocked on my door, which is nice.
That's
Um, I
awesome.
think I think once you agented to make the jump to a new one, I don't want to jinx anything, but it doesn't seem to be quite as difficult as the first
Mhm.
time around. I think you're also more confident in what you need and what you want. I have a long list of what I want my next agent to be like and what I need out of the relationship. And unless I get that, I think I wait. There's like with this book, there's really no hurry for me,
Mm-hmm.
as I want the next fit to be perfect.
Mm-hmm. What can I ask? What happens to the book that was on sub?
I just got my rights back, or not the rights. My agent still had dips on a submission thingies. I'm missing a word until March.
Right.
So I was thinking about sending it to a couple of medium small presses and see where this is going because I really don't want to shelve it.
Yeah.
Um, However, and I had two very small presses be interested. Um, but I need to weigh the pros and cons of self-publishing and then traditional publishing, very, very small indie house, which can work out for some people. It's just I need to look at it and see what are the positives of doing this versus of doing it by myself because I actually made a banging cover. Right.
Did you?
Yes.
I always make myself a cover. Like, I
Yeah.
am pursuing right now traditional publishing, but I am on the fence.
Yeah.
But I always make myself a cover because it makes me feel like it's a real book. So it like
Mm-mm.
helps me
Even when
mentally.
I send like the last draft to my Kindle, I have it with a cover on there. It's kind of nice, right? It feels proper. And I like to do graphic design and illustration, so it's part of, what I love to do. So maybe if I get a small indie deal, I might have to have a conversation like, can we do my cover, please? And I would say I wouldn't say never to traditionally publishing the children's books because it would be nice if there would be a wider audience reached. However, it's nice to have the control and not be under someone else's time management. And yeah, I don't know.
hmm Yeah, it's a hard thing to try to gauge, and it seems like the self-publishing of the children's book is working out really well.
Yes, I have. It's now actually I'm really fortunate to be able to pursue this as my main career currently because I'm a stay-at-home mom with two kids who have special needs, and I am part of the week single parenting, but being able to put a few hours a week into these books has actually created a good income for me, which is quite stable. Yeah, I never thought that would happen. I just wrote the first children's book on a whim, but it turned into kind of like a solid little, you know, self-sufficient income, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
And then begs the question again, why should I go trad pub if I can do it by myself? you know? And then also the other thing is with traditional publishing books, unless you are hitting the bestseller lists and becoming Donna Tartt, after 2 years, your books are kind of shelved at, and then people won't put any more effort into marketing. And with my kids' books, I can continuously um, put them into contests, which I just won one for this book, actually,
Ooh,
called the book prize.
yay.
um, I can continuously pursue and push out these books because they're, I'm the marketing hat as well.
hmm
Yeah.
What made you decide to go from children's book to writing a novel?
I mean, there was always some part of me that said I really want to write my own story, but it's a daunting thing, isn't it, to start and think,
Mm,
will I ever actually hit the finish button? However, I'm a very stubborn person. I don't want to waste my time. If I start a project, I will see it through. Um, but I started it on the way to my grandma's funeral. She was my okay. So you have to imagine me, just yeah, a little bit older and looking like Liz Taylor, and a house full of knickknacks and horror books. She was
Ooh.
this really fun older lady who loved to play cards, drink liquor in her coffee during the day, and do tarot readings for everyone she knew. And then she loved horror and thriller and fantasy. They were like, that was her shtick. And so I grew up with her and um her big love for fantasy and horror. And I remember on the way to her funeral, and this was really hard for me,
Mhm.
I thought, if I'm not going to do it for her, when will I start? And so I started
Mhm.
writing my first book, which was an epic fantasy, which I queried, I think, for 9 months, and then I gave up. Looking back, it was not ready, but
I think the first one never is. But
you
that's
know,
not true of everybody.
there are unicorns
It was
out there, right?
definitely true of me.
Yeah, no. And I think with my romance, while I do think it's a good story, and I've gotten fantastic editorial feedback, and it's gotten a few times to acquisition. Before they said, the rom-com market is too saturated. Um,
Mhm.
I think, but I feel quite sad to put it on the shelf. So if nothing happens, or if the terms and conditions of the small presses don't work out for me, I will self-publish this book for sure. Also, possibly because it might be my last romance that I ever write, which is
Ooh.
weird. I think I've gone completely off the romance writing.
What
Um,
are you? Oh, I shook everything. What are you writing now?
Literary fiction for some weird reason. That was the book that I wrote without any sort of pressure, because people kept asking me. So when I was in submission, I had a huge amount of writer's block. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, my agent loves this and this about me. She said I'm very voicey, I'm very funny. So I tried to keep coming up with these rom-com ideas. And the ideas were great. And I outlined those books, and I just couldn't write them. I couldn't write them. There was
Mhm.
nothing connected me to these books. I couldn't do it. And people kept
Mhm.
asking me, well, what would you write if it were just for you? And so this is how I started with a few essays, and then a little bit of poetry, and then how we ended up with a very female rage heavy, weird girl literary fiction book. Yeah.
Honey,
Yes.
yay!
Very much so.
One of my favorite genres right now.
Mine too. Mine too. And that's the stuff I read too. I mean, I see Emily Henry in your back, and I absolutely adore her.
Mhm.
And I love that other people can create these love stories. But if I have to write a book with a happy ending, I don't want to write it anymore. Is that bad?
Yeah. No.
I'm I want to be, and maybe it's part of my ADHD brain. As I said, I crave novelty
Mhm.
intensely, and literary fiction has little boundaries and has little rules so that it can keep surprising you. I
Mhm.
just read Brat by Gabrielle something something, remember. And no chapter headers, no introduction. You're thrown right into the story. It is absolutely unhinged. It's like a watch David Lynch movie. And I enjoyed myself so massively because I had to think, and I had to be, it kept me up on my toes, and it was interesting in an interesting way written. And I think literary fiction, yeah, as I said, can surprise you because it has so little boundaries.
Mhm. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. You never know where it's gonna go. Well, I'm so excited that you
Yeah.
wrote one.
I commented as Night Bitch meets Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. Two very impactful books for me. And it's about an unnamed mother there you go. And I started writing that book before I read Nightbird, by the way. Anyway, it's about an unnamed mother, an expert, who loses her sense of self until she starts having a crush on her child's assistant teacher, who is a woman. And the main character, she's in her 40s and deals with feeling invisible in her way of, in her relationship, in motherhood, and general society. Women above the age of 40 become sort of invisible. And I try to push that idea quite far until the point where you don't know what's real and what's not. So I don't want to say too much.
Okay.
But
sounds great.
What a feminine rage. So yeah.
So you are a stay-at-home mother. How do you find time to write?
I mean, they do go to school, thankfully. I know a lot of people have their writing routines, but I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sit at 9 a.m. and then I write to 11 and then take a break. And I tend to hyper focus for a short amount of time, let's say 2 or 3 weeks, and I write a lot. And then I don't write sometimes for a month. I just do things very fast. When I write ridiculously fast. So I think because I'm switching between children's books and adult books, I have a hyper focus there for a couple of weeks, then I move over here. That works really well. And because the kids are at school, I like to take myself out on coffee dates. So I just moved to this city here in Haarlem in the Netherlands, and there are a lot of beautiful little cafes. And so I'm trying to, take myself out on dates and take my computer and figure out where I get the most inspiration. Just squeeze it into my day. The thing is, for me, the most impactful writing times are 20, 15-minute sprints. That's how I write the whole book. I cannot sit down for hours at a time. I will get bored of myself. Yeah, short intervals, short and intensive. That's how I do it.
Do you do short back to back to back, or is it short and then you're done for the day? You're good?
I think it depends. It's possibly 25 minutes, then I force myself to go and make a coffee, and then I sit down for another 25 minutes, and then I don't hear the timer, and then 3,000 words have happened. Like, this is typically how I write. Sometimes I have to force myself for the first little bit, and then it just kind of flows from there. And then I start a new TV show, and then I'm obsessed with Severance for 2 weeks straight, and then I don't write. I don't know. Isn't that nice though, that we have kind of the freedom of doing things when we want them? It's again, I think, a strike for self-publishing as well. You have so much freedom in terms of timing.
Yeah. Do you ever lose the thread doing it that way? Of one story, do you have to reorient yourself to the story, or is it still going in the back of your head there?
I have an extensive list of notes on my phone. And I think I'm probably juggling 16 books at the time in my phone app. They just all live simultaneously in my head. And sometimes, like yesterday, I was in the middle of actually writing that book, and I had to stop because I had an idea that would perfectly fit into a book I have yet to write, and just quickly note it down. I think things kind of just happen. I don't know. I tend to read a chapter back, and then I'm back into it. Yeah.
I like that you write it down.
You didn't write it down?
Well, no, I always think, I think it's a Stephen King quote, and he's like, oh, I don't write things down because if I have an idea, if it's a good idea, I'm going to remember it. But then I read On Plotting by Patricia Highsmith, and she was like, keep a notebook because you need to write down all your ideas so that you don't lose them. And I've always wondered if it's like a male brain, female brain, or if it's just different kinds of people that are like, write it down or don't write it down. Because I have noticed of myself that if I don't want to write it down, it's because I'm being lazy. But also if I don't write it down, sometimes I will lose it, to the dishes and the laundry and bath time.
And I feel a book is made out of 1,000 little ideas, isn't it? And I feel if one of them slips my mind, I may have to side with Stephen King here. Maybe it wasn't that important. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I think
yeah.
the ones that keep coming back, and I'm like, oh, I should really, include this in the book, are definitely worth putting down. But yeah, a book is a 1,000 small flashes of inspiration, right?
Hmm.
And I think we can always catch them all, and that's
Yeah,
okay.
it's amazing that they even come together to make a book.
I don't know what happens. Every single time I finish a book and I want to start a new one, I'm like, I don't know how to write. How do you do
How
this?
did I do that
What? How
before?
does he? How did I end up creating this thing? Yeah, funny.
Do you always have an outline before you start?
I think that's another thing I learned during the last year. I thought for the longest time that I'm a plotter. I had sheets. I used the back of my wallpaper rolls I wouldn't use any longer, and wrote down outlines, wrote them in every single direction, made lots of post-its. I thought I had to have every single corner planned out. And maybe that is true if you write high fantasy, like I started. Um, However, that really trips me up because as soon as I know where things are going, I have no further intention to explore. I can either plot a book or I can write a book. I can't do both. I need
Hmm.
to I need to wander in the dark and let my characters pull me along. Um then I find the real true stuff. Then I'm not feeling like I'm forcing the story into any sort of direction.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I think I tried this time around not to even think before I write. I call it thinking on the page. So yeah, very opposite of a plotter.
So once you had your first draft, then was there a lot of revising that had to be done? Or did it turn out pretty much how you intended? Or I guess if you didn't intend, like, did it
No
become
intent.
what it needed to
No
be, I
intent.
guess?
I gave my very first draft, which is something I would never do, to two readers and said, I don't even know if this is a book. Is this a story? What is this? What have I done? Look at it. And thankfully both of them really loved it and said this is very strong. You've got something there. And then they gave me a few hints and tips of where things need clarification and what would be stronger in terms of pacing, because this book is written entirely out of order. Is also another thing I've noticed I do. I can't write a book from start to finish. I often start with the middle and then I just write the scenes that I already know are true. And that way, I feel like, again, I'm not forcing the story into becoming something I envisioning. Instead, I'm already writing down the chapters that exist clearly in my head. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you like have the middle, and then clearly stuff before it had to happen to get there.
Yeah.
So you can see it because you wrote the middle, and then you
Yeah.
can see the end because you see what happens next.
The
That makes
middle
sense.
is usually the pivotal point, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
if this one is clear to you, then you kind of know where your characters started from and where they want to end up.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that works. Anyway, creativity is a fickle thing, right? We all have to figure out
Is.
how we can capture it the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always have a hard time with the midpoint or like all of
Yeah.
it.
All of it, the whole thing. And then we still do it, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think this time I completely wrote out of order. And then I actually kept the chapters this way. So the narration is also out of order. So we're starting, every chapter opens with a certain day since we met her, and they're all mixed up.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just following my brain here. I have no. I still have to revise the very end, and then I'm going to send it to betas. It was supposed to happen last week, but I got the flu this year. Then I got
Mm.
pneumonia, and then I got food poisoning all within 3 weeks. I made it to London in between to my friend Annabelle Slater's launch party in Notting Hill. And then I came back and was
Oh,
ready.
good.
But
But that's terrible.
yes, but we're back on track now. We now finished. My book is out. I have a launch party here in Harlem on next Saturday. My first proper launch party in a bookstore. I'm very excited.
Yay!
I'll do a reading and some raffle prizes, and I know of quite a lot of people who are coming. So yeah,
That's
fun.
great.
Yes.
And then once you revise the end, you'll jump back into querying.
Yes. So I have a short list of agents who said they want to see it. Typically, they are agents from my friends who are the clients, and I have told them about the book, and they were like, oh, let me see it before anyone else sees it. So I have a few there, which is a very nice thing to have. It feels very privileged to be able on that to sit on that side and have my friends say, "Hey, my agent would be a great fit for you. I've told them about you, and they're dying to see the book." So those I'll dip my fingers in first, and yeah, and then I'll re-query. Though it's not my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, it's nobody.
No, but during querying process, I go back and work on my next children's book. It's already in the works.
Oh, nice. Do you have plans for your next adult novel as well, or not yet?
I have vibes. Yeah, that's it. I have vibes. Anything was staying with weird girl literary fiction. I think that's my. There is one story which I've stopped and started over the years, and I might try and pick back up. It's a funeral home romance set in the Black Forest in Germany, and I think I can make it horror. So we'll kind of like it. But yes. Other than that, just vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the important place to start, I think.
I think that's a funny thing. I always thought that literary fiction is this very highbrow, kind of a little bit pretentious genre of someone who has lots of MFAs. You know what I mean? MAs. But I feel writing this last book to me felt like breathing. Like it was so effortless and so easy. And when I look at my previous genres that I dipped my toes into the high fantasy and the romances, they always felt like work. Like I knew what I tried to achieve, and I worked really hard to get there. And this one was a free fall. And I feel like if writing always feels this way, maybe this is really where I'm supposed to be. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah,
Okay.
it totally makes sense. I was just self-assessing. I was like, do all of my genres, because I write multiple genres, but they're all genre fiction. It's like romance or thrillers. And I was trying to decide in my own brain if they all felt like work. I feel like drafting for me never feels like work. Like I could draft all day long. I love it. But revising for me feels like work.
I think every book at some point feels like work, right?
Yeah.
Because you are actually putting on your big girl pants and you're trying to shape it into something readable. But yeah, drafting with this one as well, it just felt like I'm breathing onto the page. It was so effortless and so therapeutic. I can't wait to write more literary fiction.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so great. I can't wait to read some of it. I have to tell you, I found you on Instagram. I don't even remember how long ago it was now. I think it was one of the sites. And you were talking about your romance, which has like such a great premise with the two truths and a lie.
Yeah.
And I think you were just querying when I found you. And then you got an agent, and then I was like, this book's gonna be out next year. Like, I can't wait. I'm so excited. And it wasn't. And I don't mean this to make you sad, but it really opened my eyes to the publishing industry because I was very new to writing and I was very new to even wanting to like get published. And the fact that your book that sounds absolutely amazing
Thank
did
you.
not like wasn't immediately published really disillusioned me.
It's
Like probably in a good way, but it just found it shocking.
it is so much harder than people think out on the other side. You think like, my God, once I get an agent, this stuff is gonna get, now things are gonna happen real fast. And they do not. It's people call publishing the hurry up and waiting game. You have to do things very quickly, and then you hear nothing for months on end. And with this book, I think several things happened that didn't work out in my favor. However, it did go to acquisition twice. I know that. And I had one call scheduled with Macmillan, and then it cancelled on me. That was
Oh no.
very heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So close.
Yeah.
And yeah, everyone who read the book, they read it in one night. Like but the romance market is very saturated, and people want a higher concept. I think that's the main feedback that I've gotten while editors didn't take it on was it's too quiet. The premise is too quiet.
But that's what I love.
I
Who are
know.
these other people?
Well, maybe I hope at some point it will be on the shelf form of another. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess I didn't bring it up to make you sad. I brought it up really, I guess, to thank you kind of, because I just had no idea of anything really. And it was a big lesson for me, even in like, you can write what sounds like an amazing book and maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. Like, so much of it is out of your control.
Often timing and luck. It's one of the editors said, "Oh, I just signed a book on a writing contest. I can't do it again." So those kind of, or some of them said, "I absolutely love this book, but I was not obsessed." So what do you do? What do? You don't get pop-up back. You don't get any critique. Everyone says, "This is a great book. You've done so well," but no, thank you.
Yeah.
Sad. And then I think, why as writers we put in so much work and love and pieces of our own into these stories, why should we shelve them just because someone else said it isn't the right time or it isn't the right market? I feel like we shouldn't punish ourselves. If we think the books are good and if we want the world to see them, then I feel like hybrid publishing will always be my way forward. I don't fully want to give up control on some of my writing process. So yeah, I feel self-publishing has become a lot more sustainable and a lot more recognized, and I'm kind of excited where it's going. Look at Brandon Sanderson, right?
Right.
Massive starter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am also such kind of like a hippie child at heart, and I like to think that everything happens for a reason.
Right.
So like maybe like in the grander scheme of thing, you never would have had the opportunity to write this book that nobody was watching you write, because if it had been signed, then you may have been under a 2-book contract, and the second one would have been
my agent wanted to have a 2-book deal, and so we threw out a lot of other pitches, and half-finished books is the second book option. And I would be stuck. You're correct. I would be stuck having to finish a rom-com that isn't really me. And I'm not to say that Two Truths isn't me. It's very much me, because I think if you the people who read the book, um it's less of a funny lighthearted rom-com than it has a bit more heart, like Emily Henry.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a big part of me in that book, and I really truly love it, and I really truly hope that, you know, it will get into the hands of readers at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're correct. I think I couldn't have written the book that I call Miss Mia right now if it weren't for that.
Mm-hmm. Publishing is just such a weird thing.
There is no blueprint really, because everyone's journey is going to be so different.
Yeah.
People get signed with their first book, and people get signed with their 15th book, and people get signed after self-publishing for 10 years. You never know. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
think Brandon Sanderson, even, I think it was his 7th or 8th book that he even got an agent with, which is now kind of crazy to think about
yeah,
since he sold.
mine was my second, which is quite fast as well. So I was much quicker than other people as well, and it didn't work out for me. And in the end, it was because I didn't know what I needed in an agent, and now I do. So
Yeah.
sometimes I want to tell myself, oh, I wasted 2 years, but that's not the case. I have learned of what I want in an agent-author relationship and what doesn't work for me, and then it wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can I ask, and if you don't want to answer, totally fine, but what is the number one thing that you are going to look for now that you have more knowledge of what you need in an agent?
Transparency is really, really important to me. I want to know every single imprint, every editor we're submitting to. I don't want there to be a feeling of power imbalance. Like, we are a team. They're agenting me and my books, and I don't work for them. I think
Mm-hmm.
that was really eye-opening with me the last time around. So transparency. I need to see my submission letters. Yeah, just be open, and I think that's my main request.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't be that hard.
No, but I think when you probably are first signed, there's such a, like, they picked me,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes.
Where maybe it sounds like now it's shifted more to, like, you are going to pick them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The whole time I was under the impression, oh, I have to write her another book,
Mm-hmm.
to sell. She is waiting for me to finish. And whereas if we wouldn't be writing books, agent, they wouldn't have any work. So no, they are working for us, with us, to give our book the best possible start into the world. And I want someone who's focused on me as a person. They see me as a writer and not just as another check in a bank. So
Mm-hmm.
the personal relationship, I think, is very important to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't wait to hear how it goes. I
Um,
think it's going to go amazing. The weird girl literary fiction genre is really hot right now.
Yeah,
So I think that's good.
I should probably get my ass into gear.
I think it'll continue. Like, this is my prediction, which grain of salt. But I think with, like, the popularity of, like, Bunny and her next one, like Rogue, even in Book of the Month, this month, one of the selections, ooh, I'm gonna have to look up what it is, but one of the selections definitely looks like literary weird girl fiction, and I was like, what? Because usually their selections are more like genre fiction, and sometimes they'll throw a literary one in there. But I feel like in the past few months, it's like more common.
I think TikTok has done a huge amount of service to us weird girls, because you suddenly realize that maybe you're not as weird at all, and it's just another facet of being human, experiencing weird things. You know what I mean? Like life
Mhm.
is weird. And
It is.
when people say unhinged women, I feel like all women are unhinged. We're just hiding it. Some and so so I'm excited about this forward trend. One of my favorite lit fics is Our Wives Under the Sea. Have you read that?
I'm writing
Oh,
it down right now, though.
that is so beautiful. One of my absolute favorite books. There's just so many books I want to talk about all the time. I just joined a book club here in Harlem, and they had a lot of books on their list where I'm like, So I just updated our pool to choose from with like 25 weird good lit books. Lit fic books. Like, let's read something fun.
And that book is called Our Lives or Our Wives?
Our Wives Under the Sea.
Oh, okay. I'm going to look it up.
Yes, absolutely stunning. Julia Armfield's.
Ooh, it looks good.
It is very good. I like when things go tiny little bit into body horror.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen The Substance?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
I've seen it twice in a theater. I went first with a friend of mine, and we were planning to eat sushi afterwards. And she came out and she's like, "I can absolutely not. I cannot eat burgers right now." She was not so impressed. I absolutely loved this movie, so I went again, and it's very fun to sit in that theater and hear everyone moaning and like, "Oh my god, is this really happening?" And I'm like, "Yes." Highly recommend if you like
Yeah.
weird girl horror. This is totally, yeah, it's amazing.
I'll have to wait for streaming. I've seen Paddington 3 2 times. But I think they might poo-poo me bringing the 4.5-year-old into the Substance. Maybe not ready yet.
I had to go and see Sonic 3. So yeah, I'm with
Oh,
you.
there you go.
Dogman's next on the list. I've survived so many silly kids movies. I didn't even know. I watched Paw Patrol movie last year in the movies. I'll survive this one.
Yeah. I've seen Paw Patrol many times, and sometimes I have to be Ryder that finds baby Sky in the snow.
Okay. Oh no.
We have to reenact that part.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
My youngest even had his Paw Patrol books at home. He wanted them to be read before bedtime. And there is I don't know who they read, like AI has written them. They're very
dry.
They're very dry. So they might have
what I do like about those books though? And a lot of the books that are like the movie all in one tiny little book, it's like, oh, this is how you write a synopsis.
Yes.
They wrote a synopsis and they put pictures with it.
That is so funny because I literally took my kids' Paw Patrol book and figured out how they've done it the last time.
I like take notes in my head. Like this is a great way to write a synopsis.
Yeah. You just get rid of all the bulk and just tell the story in the middle. That is 100%. I have looked that up before. I'm like, yes, so smart. You know, how to write a synopsis. Read Paw Patrol books.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your writing process and for sharing your new book. I'm so excited. This book is overwhelmed.
Yes.
I'm going to order a copy for our library.
That would be wonderful.
I definitely am.
There's a direct printing in my, again, like quickly, it has calming techniques, which are not on the nose. We're like helping the book itself to calm down, if that makes sense. And then we're sneakily learning calming techniques. Is also very funny. There's a direct print link in my link tree. Then you get the nice copy with the inside cover print from a printer company called Mixam, which I love to use. This is not an affiliate. I really love them. Otherwise, over every Amazon storefront as well.
Awesome. I'm going to link all of it. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
No.
I asked you a lot.
I can't think of anything. I hope to be back at some point.
Yes.
And hopefully my books will make it, my adult books will also make it to the shelves soon.
They will.
Great.
They will. And then we'll have you back.
Yay!
So that was our interview. I really loved our talk, and I've been thinking about it a lot since we recorded because I have been assessing and asking myself, what would I write if nobody was watching? If I didn't feel like I had to adhere to a certain style or a certain genre, or if I didn't feel like I had to think about people's perception of me and what I would write, what would I write? So that's just a question for you to think about in your own writing. What would you write if no one was watching? Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.